I don't even know how you go and be a guidance counselor. Because how do you sit down with a kid and go, you could be anything you want to be? Well, Miss Taylor, you couldn't.
The Georgia Virtue presents the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast.
This is episode 220. This week, we have Jessica's Week in Court. Southern Baptists think they're the Catholic Church, and we unpack the primary. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my partner in this endeavor, writer, journalist, owner of the Georgia Virtue, and dog mom, Jessica Szilagyi.
Hey, Dave. Happy post-election week.
Ah, man, I wish it was over.
It's never over.
I know it's never over. We're in a perpetual cycle for this crap.
Yeah, we never get a break.
But we'll certainly get into unpacking that. But yeah, elections used to be 6 months. Like, you didn't hear anything about even the presidential election till the primaries were coming, and that was it. Now they're already discussing 2024, and we're not even done with 2022. Oh, just good God.
Well, the positive, and I mean, I know we're not going to start our election talk yet, but the positive is at least it was over. Like, we knew most of the results fairly early. I don't even play the little rewinding noise because I want to pretend like I didn't say that. We'll come back to it because that's not, it's never just one comment. It's never just like, hey, let me just throw this in. It's
never just one comment. I know you're a woman.
Oh, wow. Freaking hilarious.
I am. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jessica, tell us about your week.
Oh, well, I was in a trial. I guess it was Wednesday through Friday. It was only supposed to be 2 days, but this was the first time that they didn't schedule enough days. But basically what it was a 2016 case where a 23-year-old guy, his parents and grandparents had been trying to have him committed involuntarily because, they listed drug dependency on the paperwork, that he was mentally incompetent due to drug dependency. And it would later come out that it was spice, but they had been trying to get him committed because he was just showing behavior that was not in his right mind. And, this was in Effingham County. So Effingham County Sheriff's Office on the 17th of March tried to serve this 1013 order. Guy wasn't there and his family was like...
This is 17th of March in 2015 or 16?
16, yes. So they tried to serve it. No luck. Guy wasn't around. So they went back the next day when they saw his car there. And the family had called again asking for help. So I think it's really important in these cases to remember, to focus on the fact that somebody that you care about is the one who went to the court to have you involuntarily committed, right? Because that's such a fine line, and you don't, I don't advocate for those being used recklessly. And so as the story goes on, it's going to be important to remember that his family, they're the ones that started this process. So anyway, they go back the following day. The family had kind of articulated that they didn't think he was going to go willingly. So they took 4 deputies, and they had just kind of centered themselves around each side of the house. And the deputy, who was actually a sergeant, he knocked on the front door, and the door swung open. And within a matter of seconds, he started stabbing the deputy, violently attacking him. And this deputy is I think they said he's 6'8" and was 300 pounds. And this guy was 5'7", 145 pounds at the time. And he was stabbing him so hard that it went through his Kevlar vest. He stabbed him in the head and the neck, all these things. It took 3 deputies to get the guy off of, or, just to get him under control. It took handcuffs, 2 pairs of handcuffs on his hands and shackles, and they were sitting on him. They ended up life flighting the deputy to Savannah. Thankfully, he survived. But I don't think it, I mean, just by the testimony and the calls and the pictures that we saw, I don't think that was for certain. But anyway, they took the guy to the hospital. He was lucid and coherent in the sense that, he admitted to the GBI. The GBI was called in, interestingly, because of the use of force. Like the sheriff's office called in because they tased the guy. I forgot that when they were trying to handcuff him, he was resisting so much that they tased him twice. So the sheriff called in the GBI. So the GBI shows up to conduct a use of force investigation, and by the guy's own admission, he attacked the deputy, and it turns into this ag assault case because the guy is recorded on audio saying that he smoked spice, and he spoke marijuana laced with spice, and he admitted to everything. And so they totally shift the course of the investigation. Well, they charged him with a host of things, everything from attempted murder to aggravated assault, and then obviously possessing a knife and trying to take the officer's weapons, because he did try to take 2 different deputies' guns. So, I mean, there was a lot that happened. And then he enters a plea of not guilty after he's indicted. And then he gets a new attorney after about a year and a half and changes his plea to not guilty by reason of insanity. And this is, again, a year and a half after he's admitted everything. There were all kinds of trial delays, like, the Ralston effect, and then, of course, COVID. And so finally this week, after 6 years, they put him on the stand. And what was miraculously different about this case than all the others that I've covered is that there was no question about whether or not he did it, right? Like, obviously he did. He admitted to it. But the entire argument was whether or not he was sane at the time that he did. So jurors had to weigh, was he sane? Was he not? If he was not sane, was it because he has a mental illness or because he took substances that caused that? And does that make him criminally responsible? And, we've all seen cases where we hear about insanity and mental illness, and they're 2 different things. Don't get me wrong. Legally they are 2 different things, but, it really challenged my perspective on whether or not a jury is capable of deciding if somebody is insane. And in this case, they decided very quickly that this guy was not insane. He was guilty and criminally responsible for all 12 acts. They found him guilty in a very quick time. But my question, the reason I put on the outline is because, we talk about insanity, but usually when it's something like these, it's rare that a jury is charged with finding someone insane. Usually there's an insanity element, and then we see a plea and the judge accepts it, and then we kind of move on, and we just accept that the person was out of their mind. But knowing that, what jurors did in the Ashlyn Griffin case, I think it's kind of terrifying that we give them the ability to decide if somebody is mentally ill or insane.
Yeah, but who would you rather decide that?
I don't know. I'm just okay, so for example, in this case, we had 2... we had a court-appointed evaluator who was appointed by a judge to determine if this person was criminally responsible at the time of the act, their mental capacity and all of that. This was an independent person that came in and evaluated them. And she had statements that were favorable to the defense and to the state. And then she had some that were negative to both sides. And then the defense brought in this medical expert who, to me, appeared to be a complete quack. He was 79 years old, which is fine, but his claim to fame is what he did post-Vietnam at Fort Stewart Air Base here in South Georgia, and things like that. A lot has changed. He used the term retardation. We don't even use that anymore. It's not in any medical books. So, I mean, but that's the evidence that the jurors are presented with. So you're asking jurors to rely on, I guess, to decipher if the medical professionals are quality. I don't know. I think it's asking a lot of a juror, and jurors aren't very wise. Look at them. I mean, they did right here, thank God, but they don't always.
Well, this is true. Ashton Griffin's a great example.
It's just, I mean, asking if someone, I mean, it's basically, I guess what I came to the conclusion of is, it's not whether a person is mentally insane or is mentally ill. It's whether 12 people think you might have been at that time. I mean, and I guess that's what's kind of crazy, is like all of we talk about beyond a reasonable doubt and this level of certainty and all these concrete terms when we talk about the legal system. And then when you come to this, it's like, do you believe that he was insane? That's what it comes down to.
Well, yeah, if you're actually insane or if you're having a reaction to a substance.
But do you believe that? Like, you're not you're not assessing anything. You don't know anything about the brain. You're just like, yeah, he seemed insane or he seemed sane. That's crazy. Like, this guy could have gotten off.
So to speak.
Right. But this guy could have gotten off and gone to, a facility where he could be out in 18 months because they were like, yeah, he seemed nuts.
I had a psychology professor once say, if she killed anybody, she would strip naked and cover herself in the victim's blood and go running down the street with a knife in her hand saying, I did it, and set herself up for an insanity defense. Because,
that's terrifying.
Well, what she said was the legal definition of insanity is what you don't think what you're doing is wrong. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously substances cannot do that, even though you may be, out of your mind, and you could be insane at that point. But if we open that door and say, because he smoked spice or whatever the hell it's called, and that caused the reaction, then you have to dismiss every DUI case because obviously they're too messed up to know what they were doing is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and if people don't know, because I did not know, spice is bath salts, which if you've ever seen any of the videos online about people's behavior on bath salts, like that's like the ones where they're like walking backwards and all their body is like just figured and twisted about because they have like no feeling. But the problem with spice is like you could, with spice, you could smoke it a week ago and then have effects later on, which is why you could be not in and out of a state of consciousness or right-mindedness, but like you don't know how long those effects are going to affect you. And so that's one of the reasons that it's so dangerous. But it does make you completely off your rocker.
Yeah, it's one of the things with drugs. Every time they make something illegal, what comes out is way worse. I mean, spice was supposed to, pot being illegal and hard to get, spice came in the market. Mm-hmm. And that's so much worse than pot.
It is. And, another thing they were talking about was how spice can be purchased, different types of, the bath salts can be purchased at convenience stores. Because it was funny because, like, for once, the roles totally reversed. The defense attorney was like, why didn't you, if you thought that my client was on this substance, why didn't you take out a search warrant and search his car and his home for X, Y, and Z? And he was like, well, because I'm not sure I can get a search warrant for something that's not illegal to possess. And the defense attorney was like, oh.
Well, and they should be thanking the cops because, look, I mean, instead of tasing him or tackling him they would have been justified in blowing his brains out as if he's standing over a fellow officer with a knife. So
that did happen. So here's what happened. There was the deputy who watched it all from the corner of the house, watched this unfold and started running towards his sergeant. He saw it. And what happened was when the guy started stabbing the sergeant, he's such a big guy. He basically like bear hugged him and took him down to the ground to try to use his weight as an advantage. Well, that made it difficult, obviously, to fire a shot because you're talking about two men who are rolling around on the ground and you don't want to shoot your sergeant. So he was trying to get the right angle, and all of a sudden the guy reached up and grabbed the other deputy's gun, and he was able to regain control of his gun, but the guy had dropped the magazine out of it. So he only had one bullet. Well, then he saw he got a clear shot and he fired, but they were tussling, and so he missed. Well, he didn't have any more bullets. So he threw his gun as far away as he could, and, you know, they're waiting for the other deputies to get there from around. I mean, this was all happening so fast, but like, I'm telling you based on the testimony, but at that point, you know, he was trying to get the knife away from the guy and grab a hand and, you know, just anything at all. And then the other guy, that's why the third deputy used his taser, which didn't affect him at all, which again speaks to the effects of spice because you don't really feel anything. So it was a terrible situation. And it's a blessing that the sergeant is alive and that the rest of them weren't hurt too. And the family seems very angry about all of it. Like the grandmother and grandfather lied on the stand. They told things that they testified to things that weren't true, and then they played back the tape, which was extremely awkward. But they did that, and, you know, they seem to be very angry about all of this happening. But I kind of maintain that they should be thankful that they even have a grandson to have on trial, because like you said, I mean, they could have just started blasting him away, stabbed him 9 times. Like, how many shots would be justified in return? All of them. You know?
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Ben Crump would show up, but it's hard to say it's not justified when, you know, you've got a fellow deputy down being stabbed and you blow the guy's brains out. I mean, it seems justified to me. Right.
But luckily, you know, the system, I like, as much as I complain about the system not working, I like to be able to write about when it does, and I feel like it did work. In this case, Lord have mercy, it was slow. I mean, 6 years is, you know, it's not fair to somebody who is sitting in jail, even if they are guilty. I guess they're going to get credit for time served, but like, it's not right, and it's not right for a victim. And
look, after sitting in jail for 6 years, he may only have 2 to serve.
No, he has attempted murder.
Well,
and ag assault, 2 counts of ag assault, which is like up to 20 years, I think. I mean,
well, that depends whether they sentence him consecutively or concurrently.
Well, let me just say, if they gave Ashlyn Griffin 15 for self-defense to teach her a lesson, they better. I'm just saying.
He better come out as a very old man.
Correct, if at all.
Speaking of disgusting, at least 40 Georgia cases listed on Southern Baptist Convention's secret sex abuser database.
Yeah, did you see this story before I put on the outline, or had you heard about it?
I had not.
So it caught my attention in a Google alert because it was the Baptist church. Usually this is the stuff we hear from the Catholic Church. And, you know, I don't mean that offensively. I just mean that there's been so much scrutiny and I guess lawsuits and everything else about the Catholic Church and the clergy that I was shocked that this was released about the Baptist Church, first of all, and then also released by Baptist church leaders, because the Southern Baptist Convention is basically like, I don't know, it's like an organization where Baptist church leaders and pastors from around the region get together to talk about Baptist church stuff. So anyway, they they had this secret list of hundreds of pastors and other church affiliated personnel who have been accused of or convicted of sexual abuse. And it has a 288-page report. And it was not just Georgia. But what the heck? How long have they had this is what I want to know.
And why are they holding it secret?
Yeah. And so
at least the Catholic Church has part of it is the sanctity of the confessional. So if these priests went in and confessed, nothing that they discussed in confession could be used per their doctrine. And of course, legally, if you start discussing things with a child, I mean, you're a mandated reporter.
So on the actual document itself, and I'll link to it on the Facebook page and everything, but it's a lot of it is redacted, but it doesn't have a title. It just at the top says highly confidential, released to Guidepost Solutions, Sunny Lee, February 28th, 2022. And then it says, this is a fluid working document produced by redacted, which is not to be published. The information is largely pulled from news articles compiled from 2007 until 2022. It is incomplete. It has not been proofed. It has not been adequately researched. It is not Southern Baptist specific, because it includes generally Baptist churches too. And it says this table was created as a research tool to discover the scope of sexual abuse of children within the Southern Baptist Convention, which was considered by the Bylaws Working Group in 2007 and 2008. In June 2008, the executive committee presented its report, quote, responding to the evil of a sexual abuse. And after June 2008, only alleged and convicted names of abusers and titles of articles were cataloged. And then following the Houston Chronicle's release of its database in February 2019, it was determined that many of the articles on the table were dead. So they merged tables together and have not researched individual specifics outside of this document. And then the document has full name of abuser, year reported, and then any news articles and like a small summary, the state, and then the denomination. And again, it's 205 pages with the database. And then I guess there are 83 other pages of other documents. But I don't know what I think about this. Obviously, you should know. I mean, but like, what are you trying to accomplish, I guess? Well, these people have been convicted. This isn't like the Catholic Church where they knew people were doing it and they didn't say anything. This is like stuff that they've gotten off of the internet.
It could be that this is a database to make sure that these predators don't relocate within their footprint and then take up and become a youth pastor again or something like that.
Well, and I would hope that wouldn't happen anyway, but we all know how the loopholes in the court system and sex offender registries work. So, I mean, if that was the intention, that's great. You know, I understand you're trying to like have a running list of stuff, but why is a list of compiled documents that are based on public information considered confidential? And if this was something that a research tool to discover the scope of sexual abuse of children within the Southern Baptist Convention back in 2007.
Well, there are a lot of reasons that it would be confidential. Top of mind would be they don't want to bring heat upon themselves, but internally
right.
they want to know how this happened and what led to it and how to stop it from happening in the future. If that's the goal, fine. It's a very strange thing, and whoever leaked it obviously thought that there was something more nefarious going on with it. or else it'd be confidential and we'd never see it.
Well, it was released, though. This is what doesn't make sense to me. It was released by the Southern Baptist Convention church leaders. So on Thursday, they released a list of hundreds of pastors and other church-affiliated personnel.
Huh. I don't know.
So I guess, well, actually here, so in this article on WSB, it said that Guidepost Solutions released this 288-page report about churches ignoring claims of sexual abuse by ministers and church leaders and kept a database of alleged abusers. And perhaps they wanted to show that maybe they didn't cover it up because these people were convicted. I don't know. But I mean, as we know at the Catholic Church, like just because somebody was later convicted doesn't mean there wasn't a cover up along the way, you know?
Yeah. The Catholic Church was accused of moving priests around, that there'd be accusations and then all of a sudden he'd be transferred to Albuquerque or whatever, and within the footprint. I don't see anything in the article, and I'm certainly not accusing the Southern Baptist Convention of attempting to do that. I prefer to think this was a internal study on how we can recognize and prevent this in the future. You know, what were the signs? What were things that we missed in these cases where people were convicted? What were the signs that we missed? What do we need to be looking for?
Yeah.
And look, unless we have somebody from the convention on the show, there's no way we can know for sure. But I know I'm not usually the guy to look at the rosy side of things, but I prefer to think that this is a internal study of how we can do things better to prevent this in the future.
As it pertains to Georgia, I think they said over 40 of the cases were from Georgia, but none of them were women, which is interesting. Not. Like, well, I mean, there are women predators but like, I don't know. Women, it's interesting that it like just crossed my mind. Women don't use the church as a pathway to seek out prey.
No, they use the schools.
Yeah.
Female true pedophilia is much rarer than male pedophilia. And when I say pedophilia, I'm talking about true pedophilia. This is prepubescent.
Absolutely.
Is the definition of pedophilia. I'm not talking about a 20-year-old that finds a 16-year-old, attractive. The whole pool boy thing, or hell, Garth Brooks wrote a song about working a summer job at a farm and having an affair with the lady that owned the farm. That is, I think, more prevalent in females. Most guys I know aren't sleeping with 15-year-old girls. And I'm not saying that there aren't guys that aren't attracted to them, but usually guys are like, oh, hell no, let me see your ID. But there's I think that's more prevalent. But a true female pedophilia, the broken brain that makes you want to abuse a child, I think is much rarer in women, at least from my observation.
Right.
I don't have any data to back that up, but when we see these teachers get popped, it's not for abusing a sixth grader, it's for quote unquote abusing a 16-year-old.
Right.
And we wouldn't hear about it at all if those 16-year-olds could just be cool and keep their mouths shut about it.
Oh my God. Dave.
This is good. Hey, the best thing that can happen to a young man has an older woman take him by the hand and teach him how things work.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions and not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over at thegeorgiavirtue.com. All right, primary rundown. What is the race you're happiest about?
I am very excited for Colton Moore defeating Steve Henry in Jeff Mullis's district. because Steve Henry was Jeff Mullis's pick. Obviously, Colton challenged Jeff Mullis in 2020, and it kind of went to hell in a handbasket because that was the year that they pushed back the primary, they pushed back the legislative session, so they couldn't raise money. And so, as Colton was a state representative at the time, Jeff Mullis couldn't raise money either, but Colton didn't have any in his bank account, and Jeff Mullis had hundreds of thousands. So, and obviously Jeff Mullis retired. So, I think it's fantastic. I love when incumbents try to handpick their successor and they fail. So I was very excited about Jeff Mullis's continued failure. Why are you laughing?
Not to spike the football or anything.
You big loser.
You loser.
Yeah.
And what did Georgia Gunners have to say about it?
Well, if anyone's ever read Georgia gun owners' correspondence, it's not exactly, you talk about spiking the ball. I mean, the article starts out with, kaboom! This is a big one. Everyone in GGO Nation knows the name Jeff Mullis. This bloated tyrant did his best to kill constitutional carry last session and said, screw you, to voters who contacted him. Mullis chose not to seek re-election this year, and rumors are flying as to why, but was determined to retain control of his seat by appointing his own replacement in Stephen Henry. And then, they go on and talk about the money and Colton Moore being a proud supporter of the Second Amendment and had been a constitutional carry advocate before. And then, of course, they, take some credit for it, but they say late last night, gun owners in the district sent a message by electing Colton Moore to the Georgia State Senate in a stinging rebuke to Stephen Henry and Jeff Mullis. This was a major victory for the Second Amendment. On behalf of the board, thank you for your support and generosity, blah, blah, blah. And,
God willing, we'll never have to mention his name on the show again.
Jeff Mullis?
Yep. I mean, he's done. He's out. Done.
Well, yeah, but
may make some reference to him, but...
Yes. May he never seek public office again.
Go do whatever you do. Just go away. Go do what every other former legislator does and sell a big contract with something to the state.
No.
Go be rich and happy. So Herschel is already under attack by Democrats.
Boo. Boo to him being the candidate, not attacked. Are we shocked that he got attacked? They started the day after. They started Wednesday.
Yeah, they didn't let it breathe at all. Herschel certainly wasn't my pick. Not because I don't like him, not because I don't think he's a good guy, not that I don't think he couldn't grow into the role. But he carpetbagged here. And yes, I understand he's from Georgia. Yes, I understand he played for Georgia. But he moved from Texas to run for this spot because that's what Trump wanted. And I don't give a damn what Trump wants for the state of Georgia because he doesn't live here. And I said quite a while ago, he's Herschel Dan Walker. He's going to win.
You think? I'm not sure he will.
It's tough. Now, I will say that Warnock is running some really good commercials. He's running some really quality product out there. I don't like Warnock. Warnock is a gun-hating leftist that I have nothing in common with, but he is running some really good commercials about his response to natural disasters and being there for the people. Running some really good commercials.
That's what I think we talked about it on the show, but, between Ossoff and Warnock, obviously I voted for neither, but they both have a remarkable public relations campaign that goes well beyond election season, which is what crushed David Perdue, is that, for so long he didn't do anything. And he didn't put anything out. He didn't really have a lot of connection with the public. And I've talked about it on the show. The press releases that you get from Ossoff and Warnock are daily about what they are doing, and they transcend it into how they're helping somebody. So, OSOP secures
their constituent
X to this
services
person.
seem to be, on point.
But it's well beyond that. Like, every bill they vote on, they craft a message to make it seem like they did work specific for this group of people, and they really didn't have to do anything, because somewhere, someone else, one of the other 100 or other 98 senators, was coming up with some dumbassery for them to vote along with. But the way that and it's a Democrat way, don't get me wrong. Like, we're giving you this, we're giving you that. That is the narrative, but it works.
It does. And they are doctoring the spin well. And like I said, they're putting out some quality product. And Herschel doesn't have that for sure. The only thing that he's going to be able to run on is that he's Herschel Dan Walker.
Well, and I will say it will be nice that there's not going to be the racial element to it. At least we can leave that. That's the one thing we can leave on the doorstep.
Yeah, and I hate that that's even a thing. And look, it wasn't even. And I hate this. That's even a thing. Look, Gary Black had a chance up until the point where Herschel Walker got in, and not because Gary Black. Yeah, not that Black is awesome. It's just that he has a name. Everybody sees his name every time they pump fuel. He's got a recognizable name, and he could have turned that into. I don't know if he could have beat Warnock.
He could. No way. Absolutely not. No. Mm-mm.
So if you're playing team politics, removing the racial element and putting somebody up there that everybody likes. Nobody dislikes Herschel.
Except
really can't.
Probably the woman he beat up.
Yeah. If he beat me up, I'd probably hold a grudge too. But he has a awesome name. And look, more of that stuff's going to come out, and they're gonna continue to hit him over and over again. This is not his arena, and I don't know how he's going to get away without doing a debate.
Well, here's the thing, though. I don't know if you remember this, but Warnock was going through some sort of separation thing, or do you remember like right before where there was like some incident with the car where he like hit?
He ran over her foot.
Yeah. So I mean,
it will be hard for him to levy those attacks and stay clean.
Little Teddy Kennedy's in the making over here.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for him to levy those attacks and stay clean.
What does that say about the people we elevate? I mean, my God.
Well, damn, Tommy Tuberville won in Alabama. Not because he's a great statesman or has any experience, but because he's Tommy Tuberville and it was Alabama. And everybody knew his name because he coached at Auburn. I mean, can you imagine what Nick Saban could do?
Oh, God.
He'd be the second coming of Bear Bryant. I mean, if he wanted to run for governor, he'd have it. Because of his name. That's kind of where I am with Herschel Walker in Georgia. And look, I'm not a Georgia fan. I'm the complete opposite. I'm a Gator. But, there's almost nobody you can walk up to in Georgia and ask them who's Herschel Walker, and they can't tell you. Mm-hmm. You don't even follow football, and you knew before he even got in the race. You knew exactly who the hell he was or is.
Well, I'm not an idiot.
I'm not saying you're an idiot. I mean, I'm saying that that's not your arena, quite literally. Uh-huh. But there's nobody, even non-football fans, who don't know his name. And even ones who don't follow football know his name and may not know why. But yeah, Herschel Walker, I know his name. And Warnock didn't have that when he ran for office. Those of us in the know knew who he was and being an anti-gunner and running gun buybacks and stuff like that. But he didn't have he still doesn't have that. People still, I mean, a lot of people don't know who their senators are. If you say Warnock, who? Oh yeah, he's senator. Okay, yeah. So, what about the gubernatorial race? Talk about an old-fashioned country ass whooping.
Oh, it was so wonderful. It was like, because little David was like, I guarantee you it's not going to be, we might lose, but it's not going to be by 30 points. No, dog, it was 52.
Kemp took him behind the woodshed and just whooped him. What did Kemp end up with? 73%?
Yeah.
Something like that?
And I mean, here's the thing. Like, we've talked about it on the show. There are things that I disagree with that Kemp has done. And I did not support the things that he did with COVID. I don't support those actions, but I also see how things went relatively, and I know that Kemp is responsible for reopening the freaking nation. And Kemp did not do anything to justify people not reelecting him based on, or at least as the nominee. Like, if he doesn't align with your values because you are, not a Republican, then by all means don't vote for him. Or if you have a particular issue that is important to you that is like your ride or die issue and he's not there, I get it. But generally speaking, please tell me what Brian Kemp did to not earn our votes.
Yeah, and the only thing that people have is that he didn't call a special session of the legislature and throw out the popular vote.
No. What they have is that he didn't violate the state constitution.
Right. And that's what they wanted. That's exactly what they wanted.
It was brutal.
Yeah, so once again, Donald Trump's coattails shrink. In fact, I think Trump even pulled out of the Purdue thing a couple weeks before that. Purdue was out of money. He wasn't getting the donors. It was a slow death for him.
Not slow enough.
Last Tuesday, it was rather quick. And that race was called.
It was
I was wrong. I said those polls would tighten up, and it'd be called before midnight, but it'd probably be 10, 11 o'clock at night before they called it.
He conceded at like 8:30.
Yeah, it was done early. I mean, it was. I was expecting 55. I was not expecting 73. 73 is a mandate.
That's better than Nathan Deal did in 2014 against David Pennington, and people did not like Nathan Deal.
Yeah, I mean, we had huge turnout and overwhelmingly voted for Kemp. I good for him, because you just don't see those numbers in elections.
I'm also glad because go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Stacey may be a little worried because that's a big number.
That was my point. I think it was a good, strong showing for Kemp going towards November, because I think a lot of people were anticipating Kemp having to fight a little bit harder. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he did fight. I think he did do the work, and he's been busy dishing out state dollars to buy votes and other things. But it wasn't as hard, and it was overwhelming. And I don't think the Democrats anticipated that either.
Well, a couple of things are going to be going against Stacey in November, not the least of which is Biden and the economy. It's going to be very difficult for any high-profile Democrat to distance themselves enough from what's going on nationally. We're looking at a recession starting maybe in September, October, just in time for the midterms. There's so much right now that's going wrong on the national stage that I have a hard time believing it's not going to bleed over into state races. Mm-hmm. Republicans are going to show up in force. And those soccer moms that voted for Biden because they didn't like the way Trump talked or tweeted or anything else, I think those folks are sheepishly going to go back and try to fix what they did. Because when you're paying,
late for that, but you can do
well, it is. But when you're paying $5 a gallon to get to the polls,
that'll be lucky.
Yeah, that's true. I also know we did see that Kemp extended the gas tax holiday. I think he will end up. He'll keep kicking that can down the road up and through November. I think he'll end up.
He has to.
Yeah, I think we'll end up with a gas tax holiday through the beginning of the year. Would be my guess. Look, I didn't like the state shutting down at all, but at least we were of the first to get the hell out of it. Okay, this is enough. We're done. It's not going away. Open it up back up. But in the gubernatorial race, we have sweet Candace Taylor.
Bless her heart.
3%?
Just over.
She's crying foul.
She is. So one of the things that I guess one of her supporters got some of from one county, from Cherokee County, they went and got the early voting numbers, and I guess she was like on a surge in early voting, and then her numbers dropped off where everyone else stayed consistent, and so they're crying foul, saying that, it was rigged because I guess they knew Candace was like on the up, but they don't open the ballots.
Look, if you lose, look, what happened in 2020? You and I recorded right after the votes were totaled with Trump, and we said, it sure is funny that I went to bed at 11:30 midnight, whatever it was, and Trump was overwhelmingly in the lead, and I wake up and he's lost, and we're talking about fractions of 1%. She didn't lose by a fraction of a percent. She lost by 47%. She would have to pull 47% to be the nominee. And look, she is a clown at this point. I wasn't a fan of the little commercial she ran on Facebook where she's wearing boxing gloves. God made me a fighter. Sit down, sweetheart. Sit down.
Yeah, she's claimed the tough Southern belle part, but I mean, David Perdue conceded, and sometimes you just have to acknowledge that the race did not go your way, and you have to bow out with grace. She's not really doing that. She's been on Twitter talking about how, I guess, like, the projected numbers, not the projected numbers, the lieutenant governor's race was not determined because it was so, Burt Jones was so close to the 50% mark that they weren't sure if there was going to be a runoff. And so it was one of those things where they literally had to count every outstanding ballot to make sure that he maintained that lead. And so his percentage over 50% did decline, which would make sense because not every absentee ballot that they count or that came from overseas or whatever is going to be for him, right? I mean, if you're not cheating, there's going to be ballots for everybody in that race. And she's like, I think it's funny that these numbers are going down, and I wouldn't be surprised if it continues to be the case, and that there's a runoff so that Butch Miller will win, keeping those good old boys together. And then, like, the next morning, they're like, hey, by the way, we're done counting. Burt Jones is still over 50% plus one, so he is the nominee. Like, she's just grasping.
She is being a brat. She's being an absolute brat. Look, Kemp doesn't need her to concede.
No, but that's the classy thing to do.
It is. Congratulate him. Say, as a Republican, I'll of course support you because we have to stop Stacey Abrams, blah, blah, blah. All the things that you're supposed to say when you lose. But for her people, I've seen them stomping up and down saying we need to have closed primaries where you have to join a party, accusing Stacey Abrams of sending people to vote on the Republican side to take her out. She tweeted something about Trump getting trumped, a couple other things anti-Trump, and she pulled those down. Look, this is a woman who didn't know we had a Georgia Defense Force. When Florida was starting up there, there's a lot of things that she would just say stuff and like, Candace, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Something about taking down the guideposts or something. She started really going off the deep end with sacrificing babies and demonic stuff, and she really just, she really went off the rails.
She did, and the only thing that you can say is, like, at least she really believes it. I mean, at least that's really the only positive you can walk away with is, well, she believes those things, and so, at least she went down fighting for what she believes.
Yeah, she'll have to go back to that 6-figure income as a guidance counselor in whatever county she's in down there.
Appling, federally funded.
Right. Probably making 4 times what the average person makes down there as a guidance counselor.
For the school system.
I don't even know how you go and be a guidance counselor. Because how do you sit down with a kid and go, you could be anything you want to be? Well, Miss Taylor, you couldn't.
Hey.
What? I was that kind of kid too. I just said that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like you shouldn't tell people they want to be anything they want to be. You should say you have the opportunity to be anything you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, look at me. You have the opportunity to spend other people's money and drive around the state and fly around the country.
She did do a lot of bus touring and things of that nature over the last 2 years, honestly.
I saw the pictures of her rally. I think it was at Governor's Gun Club, and they tried to make it look like she was talking to a crowd, but there were like 6 people there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, when you show up, I mean, you have to go ahead and do it because you said you were going to be there. In the case of Governor's Gun Club, your campaign rented that space to go and do it. It wasn't that Governor's was endorsing her; just they let her use their event space. And like 6 people are there. Like, you have to go ahead and talk. So there's a Motley Crue song that says, "Don't go away mad, just go away." Mm-hmm. Just go away. She was unqualified. I don't know if she just loves the attention, if she just loves having her face out there. But look, she'd never raised enough money to run TV ads. All she had was Facebook and Twitter. And look, pulling 3% in a statewide race on Facebook and Twitter, that's not bad. But no one ever took you seriously. With that stupid boxing thing that you ran. I mean, it made me laugh. Mm-hmm. She's sitting there hitting the heavy bag, like, it's talking about Kemp, and she's punching the bag. I'm like, and then she's got this, serious look on her face, the towel over her and all. I'm like, just stop. Just stop. It's even more cringeworthy than seeing Purdue in a Canadian tuxedo walking around. It's just cringeworthy. And you mentioned the lieutenant governor's race was not officially called until Friday.
Yeah.
Old friend Vernon Jones is in a runoff.
Yeah, I was wrong about that. I really thought that voters were smarter than that, but alas, no.
That's just... And for him to call anybody a rhino, it was like he was a Democrat 5 minutes ago. I thought this was heading to a runoff. Secretary of State. I mean, I
think a lot of people were shocked that Raffensperger pulled it off. I was.
And I think I said it last week that eye is very powerful.
I guess. But I mean,
the average person doesn't know what the Secretary of State does, number one. Number two, they're not plugged in to really what went on and what his actual. I have bigger problems with Raffensperger than I have with Kemp over the 2020 election, and that has to do with the controlling the machines, memory cards, and all that stuff. So I can hang on Raffensperger. That you can't really hang on Kemp because that's on him. And I really thought that was going to a runoff. I mean, I did my part. I sure as hell did not vote for Raffensperger. So amazing to me. Amazing that what he ended up with like 51%, just outside the recount. I mean, he barely dodged it, and he certainly does not have a mandate that he could lose that race. Unless people just go in and start voting R's, he could lose that race.
Oh, wow.
And people, of course, can vote for Ted Metz in that race.
Mm-hmm.
Ted's not going to win, but I think he may pull some votes just out of protest.
Well, I mean, I won't. I'm not voting for. I would never vote for
Raffensperger. Yeah,
never.
All right, so we have the dumbasses in Polk County and part of Paulding County.
Yeah,
Good
what
God.
the heck?
Again, the eye is powerful, and having a recognizable name. Look, he was
Trey
savaged. Kelly? Just what? Yeah, Trey Kelly. Sorry. Yeah. What the hell do you have to do to lose an election?
I guess it's true that the only things that will do it are like a live boy or a dead girl. And here it was a dead guy, so didn't quite meet that threshold.
Yeah,
huh?
it was a dead guy and a live girl.
Mm-hmm.
What?
God,
or girls, I should say. I should say, because he certainly spread the love around the Capitol. What the hell's the matter with people? I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, I assume it's just they're just voting off of signs. These are people that are totally disengaged. There's just no way that anybody could look at the body of work from Trey Kelly and go, "Oh yeah, he's the guy for us."
Right. Like, oh, this isn't terrible. Okay. All right.
I kind of excused the folks of Polk County in 2020 because that story really didn't get legs because of COVID.
That's right.
And he had a pretty weak opponent. I think that the story really started gaining any sort of notice after qualifying. So I think he had a pretty weak opponent this time, or that time. This time he had a pretty decent opponent, and still, I mean, his race was called fairly early. I mean, he easily won. I mean, I think some of his verbiage on his State House page. Thank you to the voters of Polk and Paulding County for placing your trust in me once again. Well, how'd that work out for your wife?
Yeah, she got burned
Multiple times. I don't even know that he lives in Polk County anymore. I mean, his official residence is probably still where his wife is, but I mean, he's been. Last I saw,
his campaign funds have been paying for an apartment in Atlanta 12 months out of the year.
I guarantee you that's where he's living. I mean,
It was a big disappointment. He should have been canned.
Of course, he should have been canned. If he had the smallest amount of shame, he would have run for re-election. He already had to step down from leadership.
Well, I think that speaks to his character more than anything. Like, get your life together, bro.
Grow up. I mean, you're an attorney. You're at a law firm. Just walk away. Get out of the public light. Go live your best life. Finish up. Look, from what I understand, her legal team is getting ready to depose members of the General Assembly. And those are the whispers that I hear, that they're going to depose members of the General Assembly. And the first one on my list would be David Ralston, because didn't he give the mistress a job in his office? Like,
no, that's where she worked, and now she is she's at another state agency. She made a lateral move.
We need to move you away from him, please. You think her toothbrush is over in that apartment that his campaign's paying for?
No, because she lost her job and had to get divorced over it. I don't think so.
Well, he didn't lose his job, and he's getting divorced over it.
Yeah, but I think she's
it was her husband that found out and made the phone call, wasn't it?
I believe
as the rumor goes. Again, these are our opinions. The whispers are that her husband was the one that found out and made the phone call. Yeah, allegedly. And that's how, was it Amy, his soon-to-be ex-wife? Yeah. He's just a jackass. He's putting pictures up with the NRA A+ rating, and him with a shotgun on his shoulder, and he's just a turd. He's a turd of a human being, which makes him perfect for politics, I guess. Jess, you have any closing thoughts?
I mean, you have a lengthy one, so I'll just make mine short. But I was just really disappointed to see the news articles about Daniel Defense, which is a gun manufacturer down here in Southeast Georgia, very well respected, does a lot for the community, gives back a lot, supports law enforcement immensely. And the headlines this week were that they were the makers of the gun used in the tragic elementary school shooting that we saw on Tuesday. Yes, we ask where guns came from when these types of things happen. But I don't recall, when some gangster shoots up, a community and fires a shot through a window and hits a young child, we don't ask where that gun was made. And I thought that it was just really tacky on the part of the media. It was almost disturbing. Yeah,
that's their game plan, though. They went after Bushmaster after was it Sandy Hook. Daniel Defense has a huge facility down there. I've passed it going to Savannah. Giant facility down there, and they build a quality firearm.
And they're like a mom and pop business that started in a garage with a single part.
Right.
And it is the American dream, truly, in every sense of the word, in how they built that business from the ground up, and as if they had any type of role in what happened at all. It's just sick.
They didn't even sell it to him. It went to
No, that's my point.
They didn't even mention the retailer that he bought it from.
Right.
But somehow it's Daniel Defense. It's DD did it. Also, the meme going around that he had 2 Daniel Defense rifles worth $5,000 a piece. I'm like, no.
Not quite.
No. Even in inflation, they're worth about $1,500. Right. Anybody who listens to Surf and Turf, Matt Lowe is my partner on that show, would have heard that Matt's grandfather, 98, soon to be 99 years old, passed last week. World War II veteran, born in 1923. If you can imagine all the things that he saw. He grew up without electricity, having a hand pump for water. Got Matt into hunting and fishing. Matt said his earliest memory was standing. There was a lake on the property that his grandfather owned. Standing there catching brim with his grandfather. He will be laid to rest as the show drops today, Memorial Day, and it's a good time to remember that it is Memorial Day. One of the Matt and his second to youngest child, Ava, was in the room. And Ava's 7, and she was holding his hand when he went. So they did all the phone calls, the things that you have to do when this happens. And they prepared Ava and explained to him that, when you die, the angels come and take your soul, and you go and you're with all your loved ones that have passed before you. And they're driving home, and Matt says, well, I'm sure that Pop, with what she called him, is dancing with Grandma now. Because she passed some years ago. They were married for 69 years. And she goes, I don't think that's what he's doing. What? Of course, they love to dance, and he's missed her for a long time. And I'm sure they're dancing. She goes, no, that's not what they're doing. He goes, what are they doing? She goes, they're having sex.
Oh, jeez.
Only a low child. But first of all, that a 7-year-old even knows what that is amazing to me. But that's one of those things that children are a blessing when they lighten the mood with stuff like that. And she was being serious.
Oh, sure.
But certainly keep Matt and his family in your prayers. He was 98 going to 99. He was ready to go. And he even said as much the week before after he broke his hip, is that he was ready. But it's always hard, and I'm sure Memorial Day for his entire family will take on kind of an additional meaning for him as the day that they put Pop to rest. So sorry to end with dreary news. I have a bad habit of ending the show on that. So, for Jessica Szilagyi, my partner in this endeavor, for Eric Cumby, our editor who takes the awful audio that I send him and turns it into something that you can actually listen to, I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.
Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.